Fazil.
Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast Lens Logic. I'm your host Fazil. I'm here today with a buddy of mine, Gareth Jones. He is a writer slash filmmaker slash actor slash, I don't know, a bunch of stuff in Hollywood. He just recently moved back to LA from Denver, Colorado, where I don't know what he was doing out there, but it's good to have you back in LA, man.
I'm glad to be back. I don't know what I was doing in Colorado either. Mostly just crying a lot.
Yeah.
But, I cry a lot here too, but at
least you get paid more to cry a lot here.
I mean, kind of, but like the cost of living, I just spent $40 on sandwiches.
Welcome to LA. Okay, so let's jump into it. So basically the reason I wanted to have you here today, sir, is because on this podcast, I try to talk about photography, video, art, and sort of like what it takes to make it as a freelancer kind of vibe, for the purpose of educating other freelancers and also clients who may be, looking to, get into this space, on a hobby basis or whatever. So that's kind of why we're here. And I wanted to have you because I know that I see on your Instagram all the time, you're always doing stuff, you're always posting stuff. And I feel like you get a lot of engagement, which I particularly strive to do also. The first question I wanted to ask you was like, do you have a method that you employ sort of in your daily life? Not necessarily like in writing, but sort of like in your living, that you go like, okay, I need to post a video? Or is it just something that comes naturally, something that, you're just excited to do and you're like, oh, I got to post that reel that I filmed, or something like that? Or is it just like out of necessity? You have it scheduled Monday, 9 a.m. till 12. I work on reels.
No, it's definitely not scheduled at all. I think more recently I've been a lot more active with it. I don't have like a system or method. I have like a few different buddies that we'll like brainstorm ideas and write stuff with and everything. But more recently, it's just been, work has been so slow in LA, just all over the place. So I've had way too much spare time on my hands to start making all this content and stuff. And some of them have gotten decent engagement and stuff like that. Like the first couple I did with our friends, Randy and Angela, like those did pretty well considering I don't have a large following by any means. But yeah, I just kind of, more recently, it's just I'll think of some idiotic idea, like as far as the content stuff goes. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just throw a light up at my ceiling so it doesn't look like absolute garbage, and sometimes it makes it 10 times worse, and then just kind of hope for the best because I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time.
That's funny. So like you're just kind of not necessarily a creature of habit or somebody who schedules things out. You just kind of do things on a whim, and you just...
Yeah, it's kind of like I like to figure it as like throwing dry spaghetti at a wall to see what sticks. So I should probably cook the spaghetti first, but
well, that's interesting because I noticed that, on a lot of the ones you do, you get a lot of views, and you're right, you don't have a huge following, and that's not a dig on you. It's just, this is something more recent that you started doing. And I feel like from what we've discussed before that this was sort of like out of necessity because you have all these crazy ideas that you write, and then you're like, I need somebody to act in them, and then you just end up doing it yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, it kind of depends like who's available. Like I said, I have a few people that I film stuff with, and like you've seen in some of the sketches and all that. But there's also times when it's like all these guys have jobs that like they work 9 to 5. More recently have just been really helpful for me just to have some kind of creative outlet that's so unserious. I've spent like the last 4 years working on this script, and I have it like kind of been very, very pre-production with these producers, and I've just had like horse blinders on for so long with like working on nothing else creatively. I think I told you a while ago we're doing that, like putting together this proof of concept for a TV show that we're trying to shop around and stuff like that. So we'll be filming that soon, but it's just anything to keep creating,
In terms of like promoting your other stuff, like your freelance work or your photography or stuff that you do to get paid money for, what do you what's your like method that you apply sort of in that light?
Yeah, I mean, I guess typically is when it comes to like photography and different gig work, I mean, just lots of networking. So what I'll do is I'll reach out to, like, I'll hop on Instagram and I'll just pull up like 100 different photographers pages, follow them, send them a DM saying, hey, I'm a shooter. I was wondering if you ever, need extra hands or anything like that. Here's my portfolio. And so I've done a lot of just getting clients that way and stuff. So I have like a few photographers that hit me up a couple times a month, like, hey, can't make this event, but can you show up, shoot? But yeah, I mean, because how long have you been doing your photography business? No.
I mean, officially, I've been doing it since like 2021, like full time. Before that, I had a job with a marketing company where I was doing the same thing I'm doing now, just for a company. And then before that, I had, since 2012, a roundabouts, I was kind of doing the stuff that you're doing, which is like grabbing a wedding here or there, grabbing an event here or there. Nowadays, I don't really do too many events just because the perception of photography and what a photographer does by the general public is so much lower than actuality that their opinion of like how valuable a photographer is needs to actually be brought up. So these are the conversations I end up having with clients when they call me, hey, I need you for an hour. Can you show up to so-and-so and just shoot for an hour? I have $150. And I'm like, no, because the truth is my 10 plus years of doing professional photography, lends itself to like good images. And the hour that they see me there's
another 8 hours of work involved with that.
Exactly. It doesn't take into account the driving time there, the prep time for the gear, the money that I spent for the gear, all these things. And so I just end up not taking those. I'll give you an example. Last week, this lady that I had shot for in 2021 when I was just starting, and I allowed her to pay me $250 for like a 3-hour headshot session. And she was like, oh, I'm a real estate agent. I'm going to book you so much work. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And I needed it. So I did it. And I made the images really beautiful. And I never heard from her again, and then today,
pay you an exposure.
Yeah, exactly. The promise of exposure is never going to replace the amount of income I've lost from letting you pay me a subpar rate, and so she hits me up and says, hey, I have this beautiful property. I want to shoot it at sunset and I want it to look beautiful. What would you charge me to come? And I said, minimum $750. And she was like, oh my God, that's too much. And I'm just like, yeah, well, that's what it is, And I thought about like, should I try to make this deal? And I was like, I don't really want to do this job. So whatever. And I let it go. And, that is not worth my time. If I've already, in this case, it was a little bit to my disadvantage because I let her pay me such a cheap rate instead of like holding my standards in the beginning.
That's something I've been learning more as I've been doing more and more freelance, whether it's photography or something else. And it's like, oh, I need the money. So I'll take this, $300 gig or this $250 thing. That's not my whole day or whatever, but I need the cash, la-di-da-da. And then it sort of turns into just like an endless cycle of like, that's the price stamp that you put on yourself, and you start making yourself known as the guy who'll go out for, $250, $300 or something. And that's a hard hole to dig out of.
That's exactly right. And for me, one of my main objectives is I want to educate people on the value of photography, which is actually why I started this podcast in the first place. And I know that sometimes I kind of veer off of that, and I don't want to like beat a dead horse about it. Sure. But at the same time, there are a lot of factors to include when you're valuing a photographer and his time. And so just so everybody who's listening knows, I hired you to be my assistant in a few weeks ago to do this big like Vanity Fair type shot for a law firm. And actually, you probably think the best assistant I had.
I wasn't really trying.
I know, but you did really good. You did really good. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, of course. But the thing is that was a one photo job that I charged full price for. And the client asked me, this is what I want. I want a Vanity Fair shot of all 20 of our attorneys. The day before and the day before, I was on Zoom with her assistant, looking at a place. And up until the day that we arrived, that moment we arrived, I didn't know where I was going to shoot this thing to make it work.
Yeah, you were stressing hardcore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is if they were going to pay me $250, I wouldn't care as much. I'd be like, you get what you get. But they're paying me full rate, so I can't just be like, yeah, whatever, we'll do it again. Plus, it's the one time of year that all of their attorneys were in the same location. Yeah. So it was like, for them, it was important too, So the photo turned out really, really dope.
It looks awesome. By the way, sorry, not to cut you off, but I saw the girl who you set this all up with. I was doing another random job for them like 2 days after that or a day after that. And she was like so thrilled with the first draft of the photo or whatever that you sent, and she was just like, turned out so cool. Oh my goodness.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for telling me that. I don't usually get to hear that. I usually get like an email response, oh my God, exclamation point. But it's like, if you're going to go out and tell another person how dope it was, that means more than just replying to an email or something. So thanks for saying that.
Yeah, like she saw me walk. She like grabbed me by the shoulders and she was like, Gareth, tell Fazil. Just, well, she didn't do that.
Why'd you ruin it? So, so the reason I brought that up was because, you know, you and I were talking afterwards about how you need to raise your prices. And the thing is you just raise your prices because what ends up happening is you take a job for $250 and then you want it to be really good. So you spend a lot of extra time editing it. You spend a lot of time, you know, making it perfect. And the truth is if it's good, the client's going to like it. Right. And so you could charge $500 for what you charge $250 and have it be good.
Yeah.
But when you want to start charging thousands of dollars, it has to be really good. But then it makes it worth it for you to not just wake up and be like, oh, I have a shoot today. Let me grab my bag. What are we doing? Like you actually a week beforehand might spend time thinking about the shot. What am I going to do? Looking at Pinterest, making a mood board, doing those kinds of things so that your shoot is guaranteed to come out. And that's why paying a photographer a good rate guarantees that the shot will be gotten the way you want it to be gotten.
No, and it's funny, like the last wedding that I did, it was for this photographer that I work for, like his like best friend since childhood and stuff, and he couldn't make the wedding because he had some other stuff going on. But it was probably the highest rate I've been paid for like shooting for somebody else in a long time. And it was the like easiest, most like fun wedding that I've like ever shot. Just like, you know, when people are paying like what you're actually worth, you always what's that joke where it's like you know, like the $200 client is like, oh, could we get some revisions and la-di-da-da, and then like the $5,000 client, perfect, this is amazing, thanks so much, I'm going to refer you to some other people who need the same thing.
Yes. And one thing that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on about that is if you're a business owner, one of the things you have to do is you have to be able to judge sort of risk that you're taking as a business owner, right? Like I'm going to spend $1,000 on Instagram ads. Is that going to return me anything, right? So you have to kind of, you know, apply that to everything. So if you're, you know, thinking that the price of a photographer is the, you know, determining factor on whether you're going to hire them or not, you're probably going to lose because just like if you go to a restaurant and you want a really good meal and you look at the price, you're probably going to lose. So there is a sort of way as a business owner, as a human, to navigate this world in terms of like finding the person or the people or the establishment that will be able to provide you exactly what you're looking for.
No, and I think that, yeah, it's interesting, like photography, like especially in the wedding area and just kind of in general in Los Angeles, it's such a saturated market. Everyone's trying to do the same thing. And if you're shopping around for whether it's a photographer, there's like so many things other than price that, you know, like obviously you have your budget, whatever, but like, you know, make sure you vibe with the I hate saying the word vibe, but whatever, like it's an important thing.
It's funny that you mentioned that because sometimes I will get a wedding client, people mostly who are in my circles or who have been referred to me by friends, and I have a very specific sort of pitch that I give them. I'm not a natural light photographer. I'm not just going to show up with 2 or 3 cameras and go click, 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 and get some photos and then spend, you know, 2 weeks in Photoshop making them look pretty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my whole lighting setup. What I pitch them is I'm going to do a sort of high-end husband and wife portrait shoot, and then we'll do all the other stuff too. But like the main part of it is going to be that. And we need, you know, 2 or 3 hours of that. And some people are like, I don't want to do that on my wedding day. I just want to get married. And I'm like, okay, well then I'm not for you. You know, some people don't want what I have to offer. And so my main point on that is that as a photographer, you can't change what you do to make all the customers happy. And, you know, as a person looking for a photographer, you shouldn't ask a photographer to change what they do because the product will then be subpar. You need to find somebody who does what you do, who can deliver the exact images and, you know, vibe and product. And the set that they run should be one that you're comfortable with, where you can get into your own creative space and be comfortable?
More recently, you know, I'm a lot more picky and choosy about the, you know, the jobs that I take and everything. Because, you know, like I've shot some weddings where, you know, like the bride and groom are fine or whatever, and it's just, you know, show up, shoot, good rate, whatever. And then sometimes they're just horrible, and you don't want to. I want to make sure that, you know, if I'm going to spend a day, sometimes, you know, this last one I did, I had to drive all the way out to Cambria, you know, stay overnight. It was like
Jesus.
Yeah, it was a long, you know, it's a day and a half of my life. And then, you know, another week of like going through 4,000 pictures. And it's like, you know, I value my time picking just different personalities. Like, I don't want to work for shoot for a day for Bridezilla. It's just not worth whatever money. Both ends of that, like you're saying with, you know, if you're shopping around for a wedding photographer, an event photographer, like make sure they can do what you want. Look at their portfolio. Is your event in, you know, low light? Is it inside? Can they take pictures inside? Like, I used to edit for like this photography company, and I would get these pictures from photographers that had no idea what they were doing. It's just grainy, horrible pictures. Everything's out of focus. And I'm like, first of all, I personally would never hire a company that has their photographers. Always hire the photographer that's going to show up at the wedding. Make sure you meet your freaking photographer.
One time, this girl who does weddings exclusively hired me as a second shooter. And she said, you know, the budget's really low on this one and I can't pay you the full rate, but can you do it for this much? And I was like, if I can go shoot and drop the photos to you and you edit them, sure. And she was like, okay. On the day of the wedding, I showed up to the venue and the whole interior was black. The floor was black, the walls were black, the curtains were black, and I think the accents were like dark blue. So it was an absolute just shit show for lighting. And I thought to myself, I'm doing this for like a low budget, and I can't even now put this on my portfolio to say, oh, look at these beautiful images I shot. So one of the things that I really look for is an opportunity to make a beautiful image. Like in 2015, I had this guy who worked for a company who bought and resold cars. And he said that they had come into a collection of classic cars. And he really wanted to do a photo shoot with some models before they got rid of all of them. And they were selling them like on Monday. So can you come Sunday and do a shoot? And I was like, sure, my rate's this much. And he was like, bro, this is just kind of like a for fun shoot. And so then he gave me the list of cars and I was like, I have to do this. And honestly, those photos are on my website still. Those photos are things that I use to promote myself. I got a couple of my own models to come and it just turned out to be a great shoot. And so for something like that, I'd be willing to give a break on the rate, but it'd have to be something that would be really worthwhile, not shooting in a black room.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great point too, because like I feel like a lot of people get very black and white with certain things like this, especially in like, you know, in different industries in LA, whether it's photography, film, anything like that, of like, I have a hard line where I'm not going to do anything for free. And it's like, well, you'll get to go skydiving or do like this thing that you're going to get something out of it. And I think it's, you know, if you're starting off or whatever, you kind of have to figure out for yourself, like, you know, figure out your value for yourself of like, is this worth it to me to do this? Like, I would love to have those pictures in my portfolio, or I would love to work on that project because I'm going to be around this person that I like. But, you know, it's just kind of figuring out for yourself, is it worth it or not?
Yeah, one thing that you can, and one thing you should be able to do as a, you know, business person, as a photographer or videographer or whatever, is bring your clients awareness of what you do up, you know, and it's just really finding the value in sort of what you do. For instance, I have a buddy of mine who, you know, was like, hey, I want to help you out. Can I hire you for my Christmas party at the end of this year? And I was like, sure. We kind of never really solidified a plan in terms of me getting hired. But one thing that I really wish I would have said to him is like, at face value, it doesn't seem like spending $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000 for a photographer would be worth it at your company party because they're just kind of throwaway.
Yeah, they're not going to go up on a website or anything like that for the most part.
Yeah, but the thing is if I would have been smart, I would have said, okay, all companies are always trying to do things to trick their employees into thinking that they really care about them. You know, pizza parties. We've all seen the memes,
We're a
right?
family here.
Right. We've all seen the memes. And so if you hire a photographer who's good and can give you really good images, you know, those people at your Christmas party are going to be like, wow, that was awesome. Let's do that again.
Yeah, they'll enjoy the hell out of those pictures and stuff. And it's like a little, spend the money for it's the same reasons like, you know, families will spend money for, you know, like I've been shooting a lot of bar mitzvahs or mitzvahs and stuff. And like those guys go all out.
But it's really easy to be planning an event and look at your spreadsheet on your laptop and see all this money being drained out of your bank account. But the thing you need to think about realistically is you're going to spend X amount of dollars already just to have this thing here. Why wouldn't you want to spend an extra blank to make it really good? Same thing with photography. Same thing with anything you do. Spending that extra dollar will really make it that much better. And it also, I think, has a little bit to do with something that I'm guilty of, which is, you know, I see an ad on Instagram where I'm like, oh, I need to buy this. And then I go to Amazon and I put it in my cart. And then, I don't know, buyer's remorse sets in and I think, you know, if I wait till tomorrow, I'll feel better about it or something like that, which is like, no, do you need it or not? Do you want it or not? Yes, just buy it today, because the only thing that's going to happen by not buying it is you're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 extra days where you didn't have the advantage of having that thing that you needed.
Yeah, or if you're an actor and you find somebody to do cheap headshots and stuff, like chances are they might not be very good and you won't be able to use them. So then you're going to have to spend another, you know, $500 or $1,000 to get somebody who's actually worth it and knows what they're doing. And it's just like, again, you can find good deals in places, but it's just, you got to be smart with that kind of stuff.
It reminds me of a client that I had one time who wanted to hire me for something and then didn't want to pay, or they said they couldn't pay, and ended up hiring somebody else to do this thing. And then it was such a mess that they ended up having to spend all of the money on all of the people that they were paying from their business to be there on a second day and then hire me. So essentially the money that they spent for the first photographer and, you know, the food and the whatever it wasn't an event, it was a shoot, but there was crafty and those kind of things. So they had to spend all that money the first time and just basically throw it in the garbage because the photos were useless, and then do it a second time so that they could actually get what they wanted.
And have to pay more the second time to actually get something of good quality. And no, I mean, with any business, industry, product, anything like that, like the same thing happened. I wear these Allbirds shoes that are like the most comfortable thing in the world, and I wanted another pair in color like a while back, and I'm like, I don't need Allbirds, they're a little too expensive, I'm just gonna buy this other pair of shoes. And I'm like, they're just crap, and I never wear them. Like an extra $50, I would be happy right now. You know, if I just had those shoes, I'd be happy, Fazil.
Yeah. I mean, not to beat this to death, but one last example is I had my eyeball on this backpack, this Coach backpack that I really wanted. And I know Coach isn't like a super high brand, but it is, you know, a luxury brand, and that's what I wanted. And I found the one that I wanted on the outlet store, and it was like $275. And I'm like, $275 for a backpack is a little bit extreme. I don't have it right now. Let's wait. And so I waited, and then the backpack that I currently had fell apart because it was a cheapie. And I was like, okay, now I need a backpack. I don't have the $275 for the Coach one. Let me go to Target. So I went to Target and I found, you know, the Target brand, the little Swiss with the Swiss flag or whatever that one is.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll buy one for like $30 or $50 there. But they were like $110, $120. And I literally had it in my hand going like, okay, this one will do. This will. And I paused for a second and I looked and I said, let me look at $120 plus tax. So $150. This is almost half of the other backpack. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to. And so I went home and I bought the other one, and I have never been happy. And I just, every time I look at it, I laugh at myself and I think, what an idiot for not like having bought it for however long and thinking that, like, you know, the stupid Target version was going to, you know, not cost me an extra $150 in addition to this, because I was going to, you know what I mean? So that's, you know, a note for all you guys out there who are listening who just, you know, are struggling with paying what they want to pay for the thing that they want.
It just costs you more down the road.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Funny story. There's been a couple times that Gareth and I have run into each other at our coffee spot where I'm just there with a friend drinking coffee on a, you know, Tuesday morning, and here he comes with his laptop. What are you doing? I'm here to write. So I know Gareth firsthand to be a writer, meaning I've seen him write and not just, listen to him telling me, oh, I'm a writer. I get to see it. And so do you have a particular mode that you go into where you're like, I need to go here. I need to, drink this type of coffee or this type of tea, set up a world that you can enter in to get yourself into the writing mode?
3 or 4 fingers of whiskey usually does the trick. No, I'm just kidding. Kind of, it's something that I've been struggling with over the last year specifically. Of like, one, because I'm like in this stage with this specific script of just tweaking it and editing it, so I feel like all the creativeness is like out, and now it's just like all the technical, like not fun stuff. So I've been like racking my brain. But when I'm working on something new, it's just honestly like the first thing is I usually just have to get out of the house, just away from distractions, because I'll want to watch TV or play video games or just snuggle with my dog for 3 hours. But I think there's just certain things of just, exercise and just whatever I can to keep myself, in a decent mental state and all that. But I don't have that is something I actually am actively trying to figure out as like a system, because I'll go like months without writing anything new. And then I'm like, I'll focus on these stupid little sketches. And I'm like, well, I want to write like a movie and stuff. And then anyway, so just kind of figuring out that process and what works.
Well, that's funny you mentioned that. I have another friend of mine who is at the baby infant steps of becoming a writer. He just realized recently that he wanted to become a writer, and he went to this workshop, and it kind of got me thinking about my own writing journey and what I've done. First of all, I never tell people you should do this or you should try this, because that can be really, really good. It can also be really, really bad, and you can throw something off. So instead, what I say is what I did. Since 2016, I've been wanting to be a writer, or at least write a script or something. And I've done the same thing you've done, where I struggle to get into the zone of like, well, how do I actually write? And there was one time that I was actually successful, and I don't know that it's repeatable in the universe, but I'll say it. And that is that during COVID, I had a job and I got furloughed for 3 weeks, and the world was shut down. And so all I had was my studies, eating, sleeping, and writing, because I didn't have any like photo projects or video projects that I was working on. So I got fun and creative, and I bought a couple different types of tea, a couple different types of coffee. I got a little bit experimental with the foods that I was cooking, and I became like,
we all did.
Yeah, And so I would wake up in the morning and I would do a different type of coffee. Ooh, today's this. Ooh, and I would make my coffee, and then I would go sit at my little writing station that I had set up. And I had this really tall ceiling and this big wall, which I was putting my little sticky notes of all the little scenes that I had. And I was, and then I had my Sonos speaker that I would put my music onto, and I would get those going, and I would not have the TV on, and I would have my phone on do not disturb, and I would just rock out, because during that time we were all really susceptible to just getting interrupted. All of our friends had nothing to do, so they were like FaceTiming, hey, how's it going? And I turn that off. And so I did 3 weeks of writing, and I went from having a general 2-page outline to having 75 pages of actually written script. So I don't know if that helps, but that is definitely one thing that I did that was successful for me.
I mean, that makes sense. Any time that I've been in a good rhythm, whether it's been writing or just creative or just productive in general, it's always just a thing of discipline. Like when I first started writing and started like taking myself seriously, it was maybe a year or two before COVID hit. And literally I'd go to work, go to the gym, get home, eat, sit and write for, I'd have like decaf tea or something, sit and write, maybe have a beer or something like that, and just write for 2 hours. And then 9:30 hit, I can do whatever the hell I want. But as long as I sat down, even if I didn't get any pages done, I sat and I focused and confronted that blank page for at least 2 hours a day, sometimes longer, depending. And that was how I kind of started. And then I wrote like my first 2 or 3 scripts, which were all horrible. And then I wrote another one, which was okay. And then I wrote one that I was finally willing to show people who weren't friends and family. I was like, oh, this is something, and this is the one that I have now in like very early stages of pre-production now. So,
yeah, man, that's dope. Which that actually reminds me of something I want to kind of pivot a little bit to. I get a lot of DMs and questions on Instagram and from other people that I know personally who are trying to become professional artists. And a lot of the questions I get are surrounding one main question, which is like, I'm not a professional and I don't really know what to do. What do I do? And I wanted to talk about that because I feel like you touched on it a little bit in your last anecdote. For me, the only way you get into doing something is by doing it. And you can sit there and say, oh, I need to do this masterclass and I need to go on YouTube and do all this research. But the thing is what gets an artist excited is doing the art and the product of having the art. And so if you're spending a lot of time figuring out how to do the art and not doing it, you end up getting your excitement for it stifled a little bit and you end up getting a little discouraged. And so my answer to it is basically like, start, like, okay, you have an idea for a script. Good. Open your laptop, open up a blank sheet and start typing. Even if it's one sentence of absolute trash that you're going to delete, if that gets you the product of writing a second sentence or a third sentence, do that. If you're a photographer and you have a camera, go and do a photo shoot. If you need, I need lights, I need to learn Lightroom, I need to learn Photoshop. Okay, cool, got it. Go do a photo shoot. When you do your art, you're going to run into situations which you'll have to solve on an immediate basis. And if you make the wrong decision on how to solve that, you're going to learn really quick, okay, next time I'm going to do X. And you're going to get a lot further by repetitively doing that than trying to etherealize, if I was a photographer doing a shoot, what problem would I run into and how would I solve that?
And I think it's I don't want to be cliche and it's sink or swim, but it is like one of those things. Like I know far too many people like who are later on in life who like, I'm not going to say any names specifically, but when it comes to whether it's art or just whatever you want to do, if it's, writing, if it's, becoming an accountant, it's just doing it. You have to just start and do it because you're not going to get the experience. Like a lot of photographers and people that I've worked for, they're like, I don't want to work for somebody who hasn't, fucked up a day. I want somebody who's gone through that experience and get that out of the way early on when people aren't paying you.
But either way, you're getting out there and you're doing it.
Exactly.
You're not sitting at home thinking about, oh, I wish I could, da 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 da.
Yeah, exactly. You don't you're going to do that forever and the ship's going to sail. The only thing you're going to say is, I wish I started 10 years ago.
No, that's exactly right. I agree with you, and I'm glad you share that sentiment of mine. We're getting toward the end of our time here, so I want to kind of wrap up. But basically, if there was one thing that I wanted to touch on here, it's something that I've been really looking at and discussing with my clients and other people I'm working with, and that is the power of social media and the power of getting your fingertips out there deep in the end. And I think that applies to pretty much every business. With the algorithms that we have on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, those social medias tend to show you the things that you're naturally interested in. And so if you're naturally interested in X and somebody, is looking for somebody who is naturally interested in X and they're getting out there, you're probably going to see their stuff. And so I have a girl that I'm starting to work with now on social media packages for my clients because I want to start doing more of a higher quality, repetitive Instagram ad campaign that I can sell to my clients. And we've been really fleshing out sort of what the pros and cons are. And what we've come up with so far is that there are a lot of pros because most of my clients who are really successful, either spend a lot of money on Google ads and have their website SEO rankings really, really super high, or they're spending time and effort on Instagram. And I feel like, don't quote me on this, but I feel like if you were to, as a business, spend a little bit more time on Instagram, you could spend a lot less money sort of on like Google ads, Facebook ads, that kind of thing. Because to be honest, those are very, very hit and miss. You have to find somebody who's really good at that, or you have to learn it yourself. And then there's no guarantee. Whereas Instagram is free and you're just putting content out, constantly content out. People are going to find you. People are going to follow you. People are going to say, hey, I trust this person. I want to see their content. And then you essentially have a captive audience to advertise to.
It builds a familiarity, which you can't really do with, a Google ad or whatever. And also I don't know much about SEO and online marketing and stuff like that. So, I'm sure somebody will hear this and, say you're an idiot, but I do have some experience with it, and trying to, basically it's whoever can pay the most wins on those types of things is how it seems. And it's like, if you're I don't have a budget to spend $100,000 a year on, on ads and things like that on any platform. But yeah, if you can grow I mean, like this law firm that we just did those photos for, like, they have a huge following, and I don't know if this for sure, but I think they get a lot of business from that.
If you have a big following on Instagram, but an actual real following, not paid for and bought followers, people will respect you even if they don't outwardly say it. They will know in the back of their mind, there'll be some recognition of importance, that because 500,000 people follow you and think you're important, you are legit or you are important.
Totally. There is just an assurance or insurance even of like, oh, they're legit. They they have their little blue check mark. And it's not just all these followers with zero engagement, anything like that. I do want to clarify saying all of this. I have maybe 500 followers on my Instagram, so I'm definitely not the expert here. But yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with you. Just if you can build that following, you're not having to spend as much on other ads and stuff like that.
And that just brings me to my last point that I want to make before we wrap up, which is I've done Google ads, I've done Facebook ads, and I think I've gotten one shoot off of that. And even from this side of the river as a business owner, it makes more sense to put your, eggs in the basket of Instagram, because, people are already on there and they're loyal once they start seeing you. And it's just such a funny and easy conversation to have with a potential client when they already know who you are and they already know what you do, rather than, some Yelp or Google person reaching out, I'm looking for somebody to do headshots.
Yeah.
So, all right, bro. Well, hey, thank you so much for allowing me your time and sitting and chatting with me. I hope you learned something, and I hope you gained something from this. And I also hope you will promote this on your channels, even though your measly 500 followers will soon turn into
502 followers.
No, it'll be more than that, because honestly, like, you have really good content, and if you continue to post the same type of content and give your followers what they already like about you, they will follow you and they will welcome more of the same stuff, and then that's how you'll build your following. Why don't you drop your Instagram handle on here, so that whoever listens here, all the 10 followers that I have, will be able to find you and follow you and look into your beautiful viral videos. Spell the whole thing out for me.
Yeah, TheActualGareth Jones, Jones.
You didn't know you were coming for a spelling bee, did you?
No, I didn't. I'd like to buy a vowel. Is that something they say in spelling bees? I've never done a spelling bee.
Yeah, Pat Sajak.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for listening. I appreciate your time. I hope I helped. And I'll see you guys on the next one.
Gang, gang.
Thank you for listening to the Fazil podcast. If you'd like to know more, you can check out my website at www.fazila.com. That's FAZILLAH.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at fazila.photo. Stay tuned for more episodes where I'll discuss photography and how it relates to life, marketing, and other subjects as well. Fazila.